In this lesson, we're going to look at how Japanese people express the concept but or however. In Japanese, there are certain words we use at the beginning of the sentences. There are certain words we can use in the middle of the sentences, and some of them are more formal, some of them are more casual. The first one we'll look at is the most common way of saying but in the middle of a Japanese sentence, and that is simply ga. If you wanted to say something, for example, like, I am Chinese, but I live in Australia, ga would be the way you'd put that in the middle of the sentence. It's commonly used both spoken and written. It's polite and has a soft nuance. There are three terms that we also hear in the middle of sentences. Keredomo is the formal and full version of this, but we also hear it said as keredo and kedo, meaning but, in the middle of the sentence. And keredo are generally spoken terms, where keredomo is used in writing as well. The other terms we might look at are shikashi, which can go at the beginning of the sentence, shikashi, and has a very strong feel to it, particularly when we're talking about very important issues. Shikashi, formal and used at the beginning of a sentence. The other commonly heard but is demo, and demo is also put at the beginning of the sentence, is both spoken and written. Some examples of these terms in sentences. For example, we might be saying, today is Sunday, but I'm going to school. We'll start with the sentence, Kyou wa nichiyoubi desu. Kyou, today, nichiyoubi, Sunday. Kyou wa nichiyoubi desu ga, but, gakkou ni ikimasu, I'm going to school. It would be unusual for a student to go to school on Sunday, but in Japan they have sporting practice and other things that sometimes the children are involved in at school. Kyou wa nichiyoubi desu ga, gakkou ni ikimasu. Sensei wa Nihonjin desu. The teacher is a Japanese person, but her name's Maria, which would be considered unusual. Sensei wa Nihonjin desu ga, namae wa Maria desu. In the plain form, we would change des to da. So in using kedo, which I said was generally spoken, fuyu dakedo, it's winter, but today is quite warm. Fuyu dakedo, kyou wa atatakai desu ne. Kyou, today, wa atatakai desu ne. Warm. Remembering des changes to da in the plain form. And kedo is the plain version of keredomo. We could also say, kirei na kimono da. That's a beautiful kimono, but it's expensive. Kirei na kimono da keredo takai desu. Kirei na kimono da keredo takai desu. Oishii restaurant desu. It's a delicious restaurant. Not the restaurant, obviously, but the food. And we say, oishii restaurant desu. Keredomo chotto takai desu. And if you're talking to an important client, you would say, oishii restaurant desu keredomo chotto takai desu. It's a little bit expensive. You might like to say, umi wa kirei desu. The ocean is beautiful. Umi wa kirei desu. But then we're going to make an important point about the umi. Shikashi, abunai desu. But it's dangerous. And that would be true if you're talking about Australia's beach, surf. It is beautiful, but it can be absolutely dangerous. Umi wa kirei desu. Shikashi abunai desu. and that would remain as two separate sentences because shikashi comes at the beginning of the second sentence. Ani wa kokousei desu. My older brother is a senior high school student. Ani wa kokousei desu. Demo arubaito o shite imasu. But he's doing a part-time job. Traditionally in Japan, it was not allowed for high school students to have part-time jobs. So we would definitely put a however or a but in that sentence. Ani wa kokousei desu. Demo arubaito o shite imasu. And those two sentences will remain separate because demo is used at the beginning of the sentence. And there's some ways of using those different words meaning but after nouns or adjectives. If we're using but after verbs, we can use a variety of different endings as well. For example, Mainichi toshokan ni ikimasu. I go to the library every day. Mainichi, every day. Toshokan ni ikimasu. Ga, benkyou shimasen. But I don't study. Mainichi toshokan ni ikimasu ga, benkyou shimasen. So we can leave that sentence in the polite version of the verb and just add ga and the reason why we're putting a but in the sentence. Super ni ikimashita. I went to the supermarket. Super ni itta for the plain past before we then add the but for the middle of the sentence. Kedo tomato o kawanakatta. I went to the supermarket, but I didn't buy any tomatoes. Super ni itta kedo tomato o kawanakatta. So we can use the kedo in the spoken version with the plain form of the verb. Super ni itta kedo tomato o kawanakatta. Toshokan wa shizuka desu. The library is quiet. Ga, but, uchi kara toi desu. So the library is quiet, but it's a long way from home. And we can put that ga directly after desu. Toshokan wa shizuka desu ga, uchi kara toi desu. So there's a good point and a bad point about the library. Ano hito wa yumei da. That person is famous. Kedo baka desu. But they're an idiot. Ano hito wa yumei da kedo baka desu. That person's famous, but they're an idiot. A conversation between two people might take place where Hiroshi might say, Keiki wa oishii yo. The cake's delicious. And Chiyoko might turn around and say, Demo futorimasu yo. But I'll put on weight. Demo futorimasu yo. So she's starting the sentence with the version demo, which can be used at the beginning of the sentence. We may also have the dialogue between Tomoko and Hideki. Tomoko might say, Sukiyaki wa takai ne. The sukiyaki is very expensive, isn't it? Sukiyaki wa takai ne. And Hideki might turn around and say, Demo oishii yo. But it's so delicious. Because he's not really worried about the money. Demo oishii yo. But using shikashi, you may hear Japanese tourists say, Australia no doubutsu wa omoshiroi ne. Australian animals, doubutsu meaning animals. Australia no doubutsu wa omoshiroi ne. Australian animals are interesting, aren't they? Shikashi, kowai no mo arimasu ne. Kowai no, scary ones. There are also scary ones. Shikashi, kowai no mo arimasu ne. Because the shikashi gives a strong feeling of what I'm saying is completely opposite to what you're saying. Yes, they might be interesting, but some of them are really scary. Keep practicing making sentences using ga, keredomo, Remember, shikashi and demo begin sentences, so you have to put them at the beginning of the sentence.